for different reasons. The Open got underway this morning. Controversy continuing over the men-only membership policy at the host club, which is Muirfield. Some politicians, among them Scotland's First Minister, rather keen golfer, Alex Salmond, refusing to attend the event because of that men-only rule. Peter Dawson, chief executive of the R&A, admitted that the issue was becoming difficult for the game's governing body.
We do, I assure you, understand that this is a divisive issue. It's a subject that we're finding increasingly difficult, to be honest. In recent months, we've been at great pains, I think, to try to explain some of the facts about this matter. Single-sex clubs are in a very small minority in the UK. Half of them are women only, half of them are men only. They're perfectly legal. In our view, they don't do anyone any harm. And we think the right to freedom of association is important.
Well, some thoughts from Peter Dawson there. And all of this on the day that ministers have complained formally to the BBC about presenter John Inverdale's comments about the appearance of the Wimbledon champion Marion Bartoli, which has been reported widely over the last couple of weeks. So with all of that in mind, let's have a discussion. With me is the co-founder of the Women's Sport Trust, Jo Bostock. Jo, good to have you with us. Thank you very much. And at the Open, we have the Times Sports News correspondent Aisling O'Connor. Aisling, very good of you to join us as well. And I'm going to start with you, Aisling, and ask you really, is this having an impact on the way this tournament is being seen in your view? What's the sense of it there?
I think definitely, because players are being asked the question more readily than they have at any other time in the tournaments past, and they just want to talk about golf, and they're having to field these questions, and so's the R&A, and I think it has overshadowed the start of the tournament. But the R&A really needs to recognise the fact that this debate, I actually agree with Peter Dawson, this isn't a question of the freedom of association of a private members club. It's their prerogative who they invite in, but just don't reward them with the world's biggest and most prestigious golf tournament for a discriminatory policy.
That's the crucial point, Jo, isn't it, really? Because the Peter Dawson point was well made in one sense. He's saying, you know, there's nothing illegal about this, there's nothing unlawful. It is the fact that we have this incredibly prestigious event taking place there.
Couldn't agree more. I think such events are symbolic. They set a tone and they say what's possible. So if you think about a young female golfer and who has the potential to get to the top of her field, and trying to explain to her, you could be the world champion, you could win any golf tournament out there, but you couldn't be a member of that particular club. That's a problem when the Open is going there. Any of these signature events, whether it's the Open or even something like the Tour de France that has been men only for 100 years, it sets limiting beliefs, and I don't want women or girls to think that they can't. I don't want those symbolic sporting events to say, if you're a woman or a girl, you can't.
Let's talk about, because we've been talking about a problem of perception, let's talk about progress. 10 years ago and today, Aisling, how would you describe the way, for example, golf has changed in its attitudes over the past 10 years? Has that progress been impressive or not?
I think it's been very slow. If you look at, I mean, Muirfield has sort of loosened some of its rules. You are allowed into the clubhouse as an invited guest if you're a woman now, and you can play, you can tee off without being accompanied by a man. But if you look at MCC, you know, they have had women members there for 10 years, and look at the strength of the English women's cricket team, and girls and boys play cricket at school together on the same teams. They don't bat an eyelid. I think you couldn't say the same thing about golf.
And interesting, Aisling, as well, to contrast the way some of the players have been ready, or, if you like, reluctant to add their comments. I mean, Rory McIlroy, clearly a rather sharp contrast in terms of his views and some of the others who are, let's say, the veteran players.
Well, I mean, he's a young man, aged 24. He doesn't want to be seen, perhaps tar himself with the same brush of these old, outdated attitudes. His girlfriend is a former, Caroline Wozniacki is a former world #1 tennis player, and at Wimbledon, at the All England Club, she's afforded the same status as men. She gets the same prize money. If she wanted to join a committee or be a member, she could. Now if the world's top golfer wanted to be a member here, she would be told she wasn't welcome. And I just don't think that the R&A, that is the sports governing body, it has a duty even if they don't get public money, which they don't, but they have a duty to appeal to 100% of the population, and to say that half of the population isn't welcome in some parts of their sport, I just don't think is acceptable.
You mentioned Wimbledon there, Joe, and I mentioned the fact that Minister's Culture Secretary has complained to the BBC about the John Inverdale episode. Was she right to do that, and how damaging was that, do you think?
I suppose it might be controversial, but I don't think it was damaging at all, because although I think the remarks were reprehensible, I'm thrilled by the attention that's being brought here, because I think there is progress. I think something like the Olympics, for example, gave us a tantalising view about what was possible in terms of a profile and attention and endorsement of women's sport. But something like the Inverdale comments and also the Open get us to think about that was a tantalising glimpse of what could be, but it's not playing out in terms of how sponsors are allocating their funds, how the media is covering sport more broadly. So, somewhat bizarrely, thank you, Inverdale, because we really do need to talk about it and not be complacent. We need to build on Olympic momentum and start to shift sponsorship decisions and coverage.
The generational change is fascinating. I'll ask Aisling about this as well, but for those of us who have young daughters, you know, who clearly don't in any way enter the kind of debate or the kind of imagination that they could be in any way different or seen to be in any way inferior in a sporting context, that is changing. And are you saying that basically the progress, in your view, as Aisling was saying, has been incredibly slow over the last decade or not?
I think it's too slow. However, I hope that we're getting towards a tipping point. If I were, well, I am an optimist. I think there is a chance that we could mobilise some more attention here. And I love your point about girls and young women. I'd love Peter Dawson, who you had up recently, to try and explain to a granddaughter or a niece, now you can't come in and just being, you know, that child's question, why? Why? I think Ernie Els got it bang on when he said it's just weird, and I hope generations to come just won't tolerate it, that we'll accelerate progress. And I don't want to be good and wait for it. I want us to actually get cracking and move this along sharpish.
Aisling, what will be the driving force? What will force people to change their minds, even those who are minded to defend some of the current rules in clubs like Muirfield? What will actually change that? Is it commercial interest? Is it commercial pressure that will bring people to change their minds or not?
Yes, because I think that the moral pressure has been heaped on the RNA this week, and they aren't for turning. I mean, I think that the only thing that will make them change their minds, and they've got to consider this, is whether or not sponsors start to feel that it's unacceptable for them to, you know, their sponsors here, Mercedes, Ralph Lauren, women buy cars and they buy clothes too, and can they continue to sponsor a tournament that takes this attitude? And I would suggest that if it starts to hit them in the pocket, that's when that we'll see real change.
Aisling O'Connor, very good to talk to you. Enjoy the sunshine in Muirfield and enjoy the golf too, because it looks really good. And Joe Bostock, lovely to have you in the studio with us. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks a lot. Now let's go to South Africa, because Nelson